So your understanding of what? So what's your current understanding of Microsoft Direct Access? Who wants to go first? What's your current understanding of Direct Access?
So I haven't used it, but from the reading and research I've done, it's just it replaces traditional VPN. It makes it easier, so less room for error. Well, probably not less room for error, but there's less manual interaction. So the client, wherever they're at, they can automatically be connected to the work network
Yeah,
or a specific network without having to establish a second VPN tunnel on top of it.
yeah, yeah. Nice one. What about Yusvin? Like, what's your current understanding of Microsoft Direct Access?
Well, I think, yeah, it's all about that the user hasn't to I think Microsoft doesn't want to have the user configure a lot of stuff, and so they invented this direct access.
Yeah,
Because sometimes the user gets disconnected if he sits in a train and the connection gets lost, or he has some sort of flappy link or so,
yeah,
and some it could be a hassle to reconnect to
mm-hmm,
the VPN again.
yeah,
And I think another nice point is that you can use group policies via direct access.
yeah,
I think you can do this via VPN connection. So you got managed clients out there. And for the user, it's totally transparent if it's on the internal network or if it's on the external network.
yeah. For some reason, your voice is not as clear as before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not as clear.
Not clear.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, okay, okay. So yeah, I mean, we're just going through like the module of 7411 of Microsoft on Direct Access. So what Microsoft said is this. So what Microsoft said is Direct Access. Uh, let's go 16. Let's make this bigger. So what Microsoft said is this: Direct Access is an always-on, always connected remote access technology for managed clients. Does anyone know what they mean by managed clients?
Uh, Clients that are on the domain.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one thing to pay attention to with direct access is that this only works for machines that are connected to your domain. So the machines have to be connected to your domain for direct access to work. So it doesn't work when a machine is not joined to your domain because the whole concept of direct access ties in with your whole Active Directory infrastructure. So the first thing that has to happen is that the machine has to be joined to your domain. So that's like Microsoft's description of direct access. And does anyone know when direct access was released by Microsoft?
Hmm. Like dates or
No, not date.
OS?
Like yeah, the OS that they released direct access.
2012, I believe.
Yeah, and actually it's 2008 out too. That was when they first released direct access. So when they released Microsoft Server 2008 out too, then they released this thing called direct access with it. Um, but when they released direct access, then it was really complicated in terms of there's a lot of things that there's a lot of requirements that a machine must meet to be able to use direct access. You have to have your PKI infrastructure configured properly. You have to have lots of requirements. You have to have IPv6 running in your corporate network and lots of things that you have to meet to be able to use direct access. So you have to have PKI, you have to have IPv6, corporate network,
So,
and a lot of
yeah,
stuff.
two IPv4 external addresses, consecutive IPv4.
Good one. Yeah, that's another one. So you have to have, just lots of stuff.
Is my voice clearer now? Or?
Yeah, it's better now, much better.
Okay.
Anything else that they said will be needed, like when they first released it then?
Mm,
Yeah. But I mean, we're not going into details about that. But that was the first thing that what happened when they released it in Server
I
2008.
think IPv6 support.
Yeah. So yeah. So sorry, I didn't mean IPv4. I meant IPv6 corporate network. So actually, if you have Server 2008 R2, if you want to use direct access, your corporate network has to be running IPv6. You have to have an IPv6 enabled corporate network for this to work. So the adoption was really, really low, was really, really poor. Then Microsoft now later, not very far after they released Server 2008 R2, then they released Microsoft. I remember then they used Microsoft UAG, Unified Access Gateway. Microsoft Unified Access Gateway 2010, which is another extra software and another extra license. And what Microsoft UAG 2010 did was it took away a lot of the requirements. Now you don't need to have an IPv6 corporate network. You can have an IPv4 corporate network, and then you can still use direct access through UAG 2010. Has anyone ever worked with UAG 2010 and direct access?
No.
Have you been, I remember then because we used to work with it where I used to work before, and they used to have this appliance Celestix appliance, and we used to pay lots of money. So this is like a company that create like UAG appliances, just dedicated appliances for direct access, and they are really really expensive. And the company I used to work for was a managed services, so we buy this product from them, partner with Celestix, buy this product from them for our clients and stuff like that to implement direct access with their products. So they used to have unified access appliances, and it's basically a Windows server that's running that has direct access installed, but also has UAG 2010 installed, and it's just an appliance that does all that. Yeah, so you can see with UAG 2010 then, and these are like really, expensive stuff then. So that was in 2008 when Direct Access was released. But then what has happened is when Microsoft released Direct Access in 2012, they've simplified it a lot. So they've taken away like a lot of the requirements. UAG 2010 is no longer necessary, and they've reduced it to like a really, really simple, bless you, so like a really, really simple deployment and for users. Okay, so let's go some steps further. So the other thing that Microsoft wants us to learn in this module is the benefits of direct access. So what are the benefits of direct access that you think of?
Usability from a client perspective.
Usability, yeah, good one. What about compared to the traditional VPN? Is there any benefit or advantage of direct access?
Mm, yeah, you can use group policies.
Group policies. Actually, can't we use group policy over normal VPN?
Mm, I never tried it, but I guess when the client boots up and you log into your computer,
Yeah,
I think it wouldn't be possible to configure the computer configurations part, right? Because
good
when
point.
the client boots up, normally, he has to contact the domain controller, but when there's no connection, he can't talk to the domain controller. So
That's a really good point. Yeah, yeah.
classic. Yeah.
Because one thing with direct access is that direct access we actually initiate before the user logs into the computer.
Yeah.
So that way it can load group policy while the user is logging into, because group policy computer configuration is loaded at reboot. Um, User configuration is loaded when the user is logging in. But before you log into the computer, you have to have access to the domain controller first. So if you use traditional VPN, you're not connected to the network, so there's no way for you to load any new policies. But direct access actually initiates its connection before the user logs into the computer. There's a way to do it with VPN also. Actually, we saw that the last time. Remember the point that you brought up, Sven. There's a way to set VPN to connect before logging in. Oh, in the back there. Do you remember, Sven? There's a way to set VPN. Remember? Because there's a way to set VPN to connect to the network before you log into the network.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Was he? Oh, you were there. You were there when was it Shami that was around that day? Shami brought that up when we were talking about the lab. Yeah, there's a way to do that. We'll get in that. So there's a way to actually set traditional VPN to connecting
Oh,
before.
okay.
Yeah, there's a way to do it. Let's go. Yeah, but we'll come back to that. So that's a really good point that you brought up. So GPO, so we can use GPO with that. So any other benefits that direct access brings over the traditional VPN?
Hmm.
What about security?
Well, it uses IPsec, which could be more secure than point-to-point tunneling protocol, for example.
Yeah. And
Um,
not only that, one other thing about the security is that the machine actually has to be a member of your domain. So there has to be like a huge compromise going on before,
ah,
yeah,
you can use two-factor authentication, right?
yeah. For example,
Uh,
if someone wants to compromise my network, via VPN, if you can get my certificate, but you get my certificate, it's not enough. You actually have to be a member of the domain. You have to be a member of a security group in the domain. You see when we start configuring it. You have to be a member of a particular security group. So the way direct access will work is that when a computer tries to connect, direct access will check that this computer group is in the domain, but it's not only in the domain, it's a member of this security group that it's allowed in the domain. Then it's going to be like, yeah, I'm going to allow you in. And that's from a computer perspective, not from a user perspective. You can do that from a user perspective with VPN, but from a computer perspective, the computer has to be a member of the domain and all that. So it's to an extent, it's a little bit more secure than traditional VPN. Any other benefits? There's one that Microsoft mentioned, which ties in with this one that Eric mentioned. Usability from a client perspective. Because,
So
yeah,
what
go
I
ahead.
said was easeability. So it's
Oh,
easy,
okay.
not
Let me change that. So
from a client
yeah,
because they don't have to worry about the manual VPN connection.
yep,
They're directly. I mean, that's the whole point of direct access. They have
yeah,
that.
exactly. So imagine, I mean, when was the last time a system admin that we rolled out the technology without having to teach users how to use it? Because direct access, there's really no learning curve for users. All you have to do is switch on your computer. We don't have to go, actually, then you click next, then you click next. So that's like one of the other reasons why IT CIOs and stuff like it, because there's no learning curve. All you have to do is tell the user, switch on your computer and you'll be connected. But normal technologies that we roll out, we actually have to organize trainings for users to teach them this how to use this and how to use this, and then train them over and over and over again and stuff like that. But yeah, so you're right, no manual VPN connections, little or no learning curve for users. Yeah. So that's like the part of like the benefits of direct access. So let's move a step further. Microsoft wants us to also learn the components of direct access, or the things that makes up direct access. So what are the components of direct access that you are aware of?
Are you talking about like infrastructure,
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
roles and services?
Um, like the all the different technologies, because direct access itself is not a protocol.
hmm.
Direct access is not a protocol, but it's like it uses so what all Microsoft has done is they've brought together a lot of protocols. and technologies So that's all direct access is doing. It's just bringing together a lot of protocols and existing technologies, bringing them all together to provide this remote access technology. But what are the protocols that they are bringing together, or what are the things that they are bringing together? One of the things that it consists of is IPv6.
Yeah. IPsec.
IPsec, good one. IPsec, because direct
Hmm.
access uses IPsec. Yeah. What else?
Do you mean,
Uh,
yeah, sorry.
NLB.
NLB. Oh, you mean network load balancing? Yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, your PKI infrastructure.
Yeah. Active Directory, of
Yep,
course,
Active
DNS.
Directory, AD, DNS, yeah.
Um,
Something like network.
also, the network location server.
Yeah, that's also, yeah.
That's not a protocol. That's just a part of it.
Yeah, it is.
That's the web server, so to say.
Yeah, network location server, which we'll discuss, yeah. And then,
And yeah, you got the DirectAccess server, right?
yeah,
Of course. And you got internal resources and external resources.
mm,
That's
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Um,
because it depends. The traffic flow depends on the if you access an internal resource or if you access an external resource.
yeah, yeah, I think that's about it. Okay, yeah, maybe from the client perspective, there's the network connectivity assistant. That's like one. which we'll talk about also. So yeah, I think
Hmm.
that's like, but we'll get into details of these ones. We're just mentioning them because we're following like the old steps that Microsoft wants us to learn in the 7410 module. So the next thing that we want to talk about is this: is because direct access, um, I think we've got. Let me see. I think we've got. Okay, direct access integrates a lot with IPv6. So actually, the way direct access works is this. So we go, let's bring up Paint again. We got a DA server here. Then we got the client, and I'll be connecting to the DA server. And then, of course, we got the internet here. The DA server is connected to the internet. This guy is also connected to the internet. Um, all the communication, every single communication between the DA client and the DA server, every single communication is IPv6. Every single communication that goes on between the two of them is IPv6. So uh, now most of us don't use IPv6 internet yet. We still use IPv4 internet. So that means direct access has to leverage a technology to translate IPv4 communication to IPv6 communication. Because every communication that is going on, as far as this client is concerned, everything is in IPv6. It's not talking IPv4 to the direct access server. It's talking IPv6 all the time. So direct access, what Microsoft has done is that they took advantage of many IPv6 transition protocols for this communication between the DA client and the DA server. So that's the next thing we're talking about. What are those transition technologies between IPv4 to IPv6. So those transition technologies, what are they? You need to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Teredo.
Yeah, good one. IPv6 transition technologies. Sorry. So who mentioned Toledo? Is it Eric? Eric,
Was it?
did you mention Toledo?
No, I didn't know the name. I just when the CBT nuggets he references and talks about IPv64, which was some sort of 6 to 4 translations using NAT.
Yeah. IPv6 transition technologies. So who mentioned Toledo? Was it Sven?
Yeah.
So what is Toledo? How does it work? So that's where we start from. So because here's the way direct access works. So the client tries to communicate with the server and the server with the client, everything in IPv6. Now they must figure out a way to translate this communication that is originally IPv4 to IPv6. Now they can use different methods to do this. And the method that they choose depends on certain criteria. So Sven, in terms of Toledo, how does Toledo work? In which situation will the machine use Toledo rather than using another transition technology? So that's the first
Hmm.
thing, is that how does Toledo work? How does Toledo translate what it's translating?
I'm not quite sure. Could it be that the IPv6 packets are somehow encapsulated into IPv4 packets?
Yeah,
But
you're
I'm not
right.
quite sure.
You're right. You're actually right. So actually, the way Toledo was, it encapsulates IPv4 packets in IPv6 headers. So you have your normal, you have your normal IPv4 packet that will have, um, so your normal, let's see, you have your normal IPv4 header that will have your source IP, your destination IP, and your data will be here. So this will be your, let's say, your destination IP. So IPv4 destination IP, and then you have your IPv4 source IP, and then you have your data here. But what Toledo would do is that it will just add an IPv6 header to this. So it will go IPv6 header and then transfer this over. And when it gets to this guy here, this guy will take away, or no, the other way around. So actually you have your IPv6 in here. So that's not the way it's going to be. So if I cancel this, so if I go and then so you have your IPv6 header there, and then your IPv6 source IP, IPv6 destination IP, and then it's going to take this and put your IPv4 destination IP and your IPv4 source IP. It's going to have that at the top, but inside it is an IPv6 packet. So that's all Toledo is doing. Toledo is simply adding, an extra header to the IPv6 packet. So that's the way it works. And in what situation will they decide to use Toledo? In what situation, Sven? In what situation will they decide, oh, we're going to use Toledo for this communication?
Well, yeah, when there's no possibility to talk IPv6, right?
Yeah, so that's part.
native IPv6.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so this is the way. So let me quickly explain something before we move on. So when you're deploying direct access, you can deploy direct access in many ways. One way is you can have your direct access server directly connected to the internet. In which case, your direct access server will have an IPv4 public IP address, right? So then you go to, a DNS an internet registrar, and then you register your, IPv4, address to maybe da.adatum.com to a public DNS. You get what that means. So you just register it to a public DNS, but that's going to be your direct access your direct access server is directly connecting to the public internet. So it has an interface that has a public IP. And then it will have another interface that is connected to your local LAN. And that one will have your private IP. So that's one way to deploy direct access. Another way to deploy direct access is this. Is if you have direct access here, you have a firewall here. Your direct access server is sitting behind the firewall. And your direct access server is connected to your local corporate network. So this firewall here is connecting to the internet with a public IP. So this firewall here, we have a public IP address. And then what you do is that you go to the internet and you register a public IP to a public DNS name. And then when that name hits this firewall, the firewall would use NAT translation, right? We do NAT translation and translate that public IP to a private IP. I'm not sure, is that clear, Eric and Dwayne? Is that clear at all?
Yeah, it's clear.
So the IP you register with the public IP, is that supposed to be an IPv6 public IP then?
No,
or?
so it's going to be IPv4.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you would NAT it to an IPv6?
No, so everything right now is just IPv4. So
okay.
At this moment, IPv6 is not yet involved at all.
Okay.
So IPv6 becomes involved when direct access communication starts. But this one will help us when we start discussing when do they use 6-to-4 translation? When do they use Toledo translation? When do they use IP-HTTPS translation? Because all this ties in. See, if your direct access server is directly connected to a public directly connected to the internet with a public IP on its interface, and your client here is also directly connected with the internet with a public IPv4 address, the direct access communication with them will use 6-to-4 translation, not Toledo. So that's the situation that they will use 6-to-4 if your client has a public IPv4 address and the direct access server has a public IPv4 address. Whereas if your direct access server is sitting behind a firewall that it has to do NAT, and your client is sitting behind the firewall where it has to do NAT, you get the point, where your client has to do private to public translation with your ADSL router. They are going to use Toledo for translation in that situation. So that's the situation that determines. So do you have a public IP? I have a public IP. Do you have a public IP? A public IPv4 IP address? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Okay, let's use 6-to-4 to translate the communication between us. Okay, sorry, I'm using private IP, but I have a firewall in front of me that is translating it to a public IP. Okay, let's use Toledo translation. Okay, I've got a NAT device in front of me, but the firewall is blocking a lot of things. Okay, let's use HTTPS translation. You get the point? So that all ties into how they decide which translation method do we use. So this one is sitting behind the firewall. Maybe your client is sitting behind the firewall also. So if your client is sitting behind the firewall, so your client has a private IP, maybe 192.168.1 dot something. This one also has a private IP, maybe 172 dot something .x has a private IP, and then they are both sitting in front of a firewall. In that situation, they will use Toledo. But for them to use Toredo, there's a requirement. Does anyone know what that requirement is? There's a port that needs to be
So
open.
there's a part, yes, there's
Yeah.
a part.
So the port is so it's on Microsoft's website, UDP 3544. So that means port UDP 3544 has to be open between your client and the direct access server. So that means your firewall here must have. Eric, do you have a question about this?
No, yeah, so 3544, that is a port required for Teredo?
Exactly, for Toredo.
Okay.
So the first one that they'll probably try to use is 6 to 4. And they use 6 to 4 if they both have public IPv4 addresses. Your client has public IPv4 address, your server has a public IPv4 address. They use 6 to 4. They just go for 6 to 4. They don't need to have any port open or anything like that. They just use 6 to 4 translation. They both have public IP addresses. Now, if they are both sitting behind NAT devices or devices that is doing NAT for them, then they can either use Toredo or they can use IP HTTPS for translation. They will use Toredo if port UDP 3544 is open between them. But let's say for some reason your ISP over here is blocking UDP 3544, then they won't be able to use Toredo. In that case, they move over and use IP HTTPS. I'm not sure, is that clear?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. What was Ben? Is that clear a bit?
Um, you use HTTPS if you cannot use Tornado because the port is blocked, and
Exactly.
it can be used when both clients are behind, when the server and the clients are behind netted
Exactly.
devices like firewalls or so. Okay.
Exactly. Because HTTPS normally will be open anyway.
Well,
Because, yeah,
443.
yeah, exactly. So they were like, okay, is port 3544 open between us if we're both behind NAT devices? Okay, let's try Toredo. 3544 is not working. Yeah, there's a problem there. And I remember where I used to work before that we used to have a big problem with this. Because the moment that it goes through this order, it tries to use 6 to 4. It's like, oh, we don't have public IP address. It tries to use Toredo. The moment that fails, man, the user is in for a terrible experience because IP HTTPS was extremely slow. And one of the reasons for that is that it does encryption twice because direct access uses IPsec to establish encryption. Then after that, it's trying to transfer this packet, then it has to use SSL to do the encryption again. So it's doing double encryption and double decryption. And then
So
yeah, carry on.
wouldn't you do the three-way handshake first? You do a TCP three-way handshake using HTTPS first to establish that TCP connection, and then you would set up then it would go through and encrypt that using direct access, or is it the reverse, direct access and then SSL?
Direct access first, because this one, again, this one is about the communication between them. So the direct access tunnel is established with IPsec, first of all. Then they're like, okay, we need to communicate between one another. The client wants to get a file on the file server. It needs to communicate with the direct access server. All those communication is in IPv6. So that after the tunnel has been established, all the communication between them. So the initial communication is IPsec, it's IPv4. But then the
Okay.
communication between the client and the server, everything is in IPv6. So they're like, do we use 6 to 4 to translate this, to transfer this traffic between us? Do we use Toredo to transfer this traffic between us? Okay, not. We'll use IP HTTPS, but now we have to perform encryption again. After IPsec already has a tunnel that's encrypted, but now we have to perform another encryption. So then it goes over IPsec, does decryption, then goes to the direct access server, then does decryption again. And then direct access server replies and encrypts it, and then goes to IPsec and then encrypts again. And then it gets to the client, and then it gets to the other side. It's decrypts with IPsec. Then it's like, oh, you're encrypted with HTTP with SSL again. Now I have to decrypt you again. So it used to be like a slow issue for users. But what Microsoft has now done in Server 2012 is that when they now use so HTTPS, the way they use it is they only use it for authentication and not for encryption.
Uh,
And we'll see where we set that setting when we start doing the configuration. Because there's a way that we can set that setting that when the client and the server decide we're going to be using HTTPS, they're only going to be doing authentication and not encryption. So the encryption will just use the IPsec tunnel. So that way, IP HTTPS has now gotten to a level that it is as fast as Toledo. But I remember then, I mean, when I was working as Virgin then, we we used to be that what's the user using? Is it HTTPS? Yeah, you're in for a tough time because it's gonna be really really slow, and we'll try as much as possible to avoid HTTPS and stuff like that. But yeah, so I hope that's clear. So we have Toledo, we have 624, and we have IP HTTPS. So those are IPv6 transition technology. So Toledo encapsulate IPv6 packets in IPv4. Actually, it's not this way. Mm, IPv6 packets in IPv4 headers. And that's exactly the same thing that um, 624 does. So 624 encapsulate IPv6 packets in IPv4 headers, and um, it is used when public IP addresses. Used when the nodes are behind a NAT device and UDP port 3544, not that, 3544 is open. And then IP HTTPS used when both Toledo and 6 to 4 um, are not applicable. So that's when it uses IP HTTPS. And IP HTTPS just encapsulates same thing, IPv6 packet in IPv4. It just uses HTTP and SSL rather. Okay, so that's like the different transition. That's like the it's my wife switching off the light. People won't be able to see me now. No, it's all right. It's all right. I'm not that
I'll,
dark. Just switch
there's
off.
a joke there, but I'm gonna stay away from it.
you, you, you say I'm not that dark. You're all right. Okay, yeah. So we got that. So again, let's go back to this diagram. So that's the communication between the direct access and the direct access client. So those are the IPv6 transition technologies available to them. But then the other thing to consider is this, is that direct access, when it's communicating with your internal server or your direct access server, when it's communicating with your internal servers, it also uses IPv6. So direct access is an IPv6 technology from top to bottom. So when it's communicating with the client, it's using IPv6. But in this case, it's using public IPv6 transition technologies, which are 624 Toledo IP HTTPS. But when it's communicating with servers on your corporate LAN, it also uses IPv6. And you must implement another transition technology for your direct access server to be able to communicate with your internal servers that are IPv4. So this is like one of the one that was missing like in the early 2008 R2 days. And there's one main one that you use for that. So that is, let's call this um, public IPv6 transition technology, and let's call this other one private IPv6 transition technologies. And that is, have you heard it? What do you think it is, Eric or Sven? What technology do you think they use, direct access server uses to communicate with internal servers in IPv6? You've heard of this before? ISATAP.
ISATAP, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So it's
Yes.
actually part of the 7410 module. It's actually part of the 7410 module because I remember in class we did ISATAP then, and we're doing the lab and we're like, hey, what are we configuring? Yeah. So ISATAP is what it uses for intranet IPv6 transition. And the way, does anyone know how ISATAP works? Does anyone want to explain and break it down in details how ISATAP works? Anyone?
Not me. I mean, unless you want me to read off the wiki, I'm like,
Well, Sven, what about you, Sven? How ISATAP work?
Yeah, okay, so I think first of all, you need a DNS record, right?
Good one, very, very good one. That's the very first thing.
and
Because the way
and
ISATAP work,
that's
let me write it down as you're saying it.
yeah,
Because the way ISATAP work is your machines on the network, they need a router so it's basically working like, think of it like NAT to an extent. So you have this router that you can send your packet to. If you
yeah,
translate that packet to IPv6 and then send it to who it's going to, then the
yeah.
other one on the other side responds in IPv4. Sorry, responds in IPv6 to the router. So let me break it down. Let's go. Let's bring up another paint.
So, quick question.
Carry on. Hello? Hello? Hello?
devices as
Okay.
opposed to using like software.
Okay.
Hello. Sorry, guys.
Okay. So
My internet
you are in the
connection went down.
Microsoft server team, or what are you doing in your company?
Yeah, I work for a web hosting company, so I'm
Okay.
a Windows systems engineer. I kind of manage the Windows stack for a group of customers.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, guys. My
David,
internet.
you there? I think you're
Yeah,
muted.
my internet. Oh, sorry. my internet connection went down completely. Yeah, sorry, my internet connection went down.
Oh, it's back.
So yeah, so he's he's back now. He does that from time to time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your wife pulls a plug again.
he, 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 it is. This one we're talking. Yeah. So you can see the screen, right? You can
Yeah.
still see
Yeah.
this. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the way iSetup works. So it's like a
Okay.
router that does NAT translation between IPv4 and IPv6. So this is the iSetup router. So this iSetup router has an interface that speaks IPv4. It has another interface that speaks IPv6.
Hey
So
David,
yeah,
so the question I asked right before you got disconnected
yeah.
is IsoTab a Windows feature or like a physical device or a software on top of a router? Like, can you elaborate on what IsoTab
It's
is?
just a translation technology. It's the same as IP, HTTPS. It's the same as so it's not a feature that you install or anything. It's
Okay.
yeah, it's a transition technology. It's an IPv6 transition technology.
Okay.
Yeah. Does Sven want to add anything to that? I'd like to know. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think the translation is quite funny because the IPv6 address you get is so one part is typical the IPv6 you got an IPv6 part and another part is a classic IPv4
Yeah.
address.
Yeah.
So
So it's not so it's not like a like yeah. So it's not like what Ben said is absolutely critical. It's not like a pure IPv6 address like that. So if you see an isotype address, for example, like you'll see. Actually, let's see if you can bring something up on Google about it. So if you go sample isotype address. So let's see something about that. Um, but not example, just address. And then let's see. Mm, yeah, look at this. Can you see something like this? Can you see that? Or do I
yeah,
need to? Yeah. So that's the way. So that's the way it is. So you've got. Look at this. You've got IPv6. Then all of a sudden you got 192.0.0.2.43. So that's an example of how iSetup address will look like. So what will happen is this guy here. He speaks only IPv4. So that's typical of your corporate servers, right? Your corporate servers speak only IPv4. And this guy, your direct access server, is like, I speak only IPv6, you know? So I have no clue what you're talking about, when you're talking IPv4. I speak only IPv6. So what will happen is that this guy will send this traffic. So this guy wants to send the traffic. He will send the traffic over to the iSetup router. And then the iSetup router will translate it into those kind of address that we saw and then forward it to where it's supposed to go to. And then this guy is like, yeah, I got the message. I'll reply in IPv6. Reply in IPv6 sent to this guy. This guy will take it, translate it back to the IPv4 address, and forward it back to this guy. So that's the way iSetup works on your corporate LAN. And the way it works is the first thing that Sven said is you have to have a DNS entry. And the DNS entry is for which entry, which record and which entry?
um,
A record.
Yep,
well,
a
yeah,
record.
it's a record
And
in your
what will it
in
be?
your
What would be the record name? What would be the name of the?
something with global or so. I don't think. I know that you have to do some registry hack to make this a record work.
No, yeah, we've not even got reached the registry hack first, but the record itself will be high setup. So that's what. So you go and create an A record called iSetup, pointing to an IPv4 address. So in this case, that will be your direct access. That will be your direct access server. So your direct access server in this scenario will be your iSetup router. So you create a DNS record. So what will happen is that whenever this guy goes and this guy is like, I want to send, okay, maybe the direct access server sends a message to this guy. And this guy is like, okay, I've got this message. I want to reply to you, but I know that you sent this message to me in IPv6. How do I reply? This guy goes and does an NS lookup for the record ISATAP. And whatever it resolves it to is like, I'll send this information to you, and you translate it for me and forward it to the client for me. So that's how iSetup works in basic. So that's how it works. I'm not sure, is that clear, Eric?
Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. Okay. So we have to have so yeah, carry on. So after we have a DNS record, what else do we need, Sven, for iSetup to work properly?
Um,
Mm, well, anything else that you think
uh,
we need?
okay, of course you need the DNS server, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, yeah.
Yeah. The one that we mentioned, like the one you mentioned, something important in terms of like the registry.
You mean that's DNS query block list.
Yes.
You have to configure this one on the DNS server because otherwise you will make the A record and the DNS server will just ignore it.
Yeah. Good one. So that's one. So actually, if I bring up, let's bring up. Actually, let me see if it's gonna work on this server by itself. Let's.
And it's the same for WPAT
Yeah.
if you will configure it in the future because
Good.
I had like 3 hours or so to
Yeah.
get this guy running. So
Yeah. DNS is a DNS command. Yeah, maybe let's go command. It's a DNS. I'm not sure. It's DNS command. What's it called? It's a DNS command.
DNS cmd/config.
Actually, I was looking /info. I think we can use /info, but how come it's not working? Do I need to open a command prompt? Rather than
Wait a second. I think you are in. Yeah, I think you need the classic command prompt.
okay, DNS command, and
Huh?
no, it doesn't like it.
Perhaps there's no DNS. This server is not a DNS server, perhaps.
Mm, let me go CMD. So if I go DNS CMD. Yep, good one. So we got DNS CMD. So let me go
Uh,
properties. Yeah, this is better. So DNS CMD. So if we go DNS CMD, um, let's go /info. Okay, DNS CMD /info slash um, is global something. DNS CMD
uh,
/info
global query block list.
query block lists. Yeah,
Yeah,
good one. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so this is the one that we're talking about, Eric. So not to make it confusing to Eric. So you can see that every host on your network is configured to block this DNS query. Every host on your network.
Not, the client will still make a request to the DNS server,
Yeah.
but and you as an administrator can add the ISATAP A record,
Hmm.
but the DNS server will not reply to the
Yeah.
ISATAP request of the client, and there will also be an entry in the event log.
Yeah. Is that clear, Eric?
So if it's not responding, does it act like a forwarder? Is it just sending that? Is that ISATAP record just forwarding you to or routing you to the ISATAP router?
So this is the way it will work. For example, your IPv4 client wants to send something. Your IPv4 client will go, okay, this needs to be translated to IPv6. I will resolve the name ISATAP because that's like standard on Windows networks. The ISATAP router in the environment, you must have an A record for it called ISATAP because that's what all the clients will be looking for. In order for them to find their ISATAP router, they'll be looking for DNS record ISATAP. So that's what they are sending it to. So if this guy goes and says, I'm looking for DNS record ISATAP, by default, he sets to block it. So that's why we need to make registry changes to allow it. Otherwise,
Okay.
it's going to say, I'm looking for ISATAP and nothing's going to come back because it's a security feature why they block ISATAP and why they block WPAD. Otherwise, somebody can just, reply to that and hijack like a lot of your traffic.
Okay.
So you have to manually go and say, okay, I'm using ISATAP on my network and I'm going to be allowing my clients to resolve it. So that's why it's on the DNS block list. Like what Vin said, WPAD, which is used for web proxy, is also blocked by default on Windows clients. So
Okay.
we can either do it two ways, either go into the registry manually, or the other way we can do is we can do it via group policy and just unblock it on our client and that. Okay, so that's what it uses on the corporate network. So again, the things we've done so far, direct access, it's an IPv6 technology from top to bottom. For its public side, when it's communicating with clients, it can either use Toledo 624 IP HTTPS, depending on different parameters. If it's talking to your private servers or to your corporate servers, it can use ISATAP to translate IP to do IPv6 transition. And you have to go through all the ISATAP configuration of DNS record, uh, unblock ISATAP in DNS block list. So you have to go through like all those stuff and doing that. Okay, so this is where we start to do because actually direct access doesn't have like too much stuff to really dig deep into, at least for now. We'll still dig deep into it later in like later modules. But the main thing for now is like just understanding this one is really important. Understand. Then the other thing that is really important is also understanding how direct access works in terms of what it uses. So direct access actually uses Windows Firewall, Windows Advanced Firewall. Do you know what it uses Windows Advanced Firewall for?
Should be due to IPsec.
Exactly. So it uses Windows Advanced Firewall for the IPsec settings that it uses. So if I go to Windows Firewall, and then go to Advanced Settings, and it's under this connection security rules here, yeah, that it's going to set up and the tunnels that it's going to actually be using for the connection between the server and the client. So we'll come to this. But okay, let's do a bit of stuff here. So now we have a client. Let's do a bit of lab here now. Yeah. So this is our domain controller. Let's see what's involved in
Right.
it.
That's a domain controller.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, but the firewall profile is set to private network, not to domain network. That's strange, right?
But which one is that? Let's see. Like,
Go somewhere on the network.
this one.
So domain network's not connected and
I'm not
private
even
network
sure. Have I?
connected?
Yeah, I think I've
Yeah,
installed.
it's
Yeah, it
strange,
is.
right?
It is. Why? It is.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, there's a way to
Okay.
type a command to change that one.
Yeah. Okay.
So okay. So
When we run into trouble later, we will check it again, right?
with firewalls, you mean?
Yeah, perhaps we can run into troubles later because the
Yeah.
profile is not
Yeah,
right.
I think so. I think it can. In
Yeah.
terms of firewalls.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we'll fix it. So let's go to let's. I think I've joined one computer to the domain. Yeah. Okay. So
Okay.
we've got long
Okay.
client too.
Okay.
That's
And
not carry on,
will
sorry.
we do the domain controller will be the direct access server in this lab?
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
okay.
Direct access server. So Lon Mem1 will be our direct access server. But here's the thing. Have I joined it to the domain? Because I can't find it there. Yeah, okay, yeah, it's there actually.
Could be
So
there.
yeah, it's joined to. So it's the same one that we used from last time.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go on the settings. No, so actually, then the other thing that is that when you're deploying direct access, which we get to when we start actually. So if we go to, there are different modes that we can use to deploy direct access. When one know what those modes are, we can use a simple deployment or we can use a
Um,
complex deployment.
um, do you mean when the direct access server is an edge device, or when it got two NICs or just one NIC? Do you
Yeah,
mean
that's
this?
also one
Or?
of them. Yeah, so that's back to this one. So
Okay.
here is another good one that Microsoft has done with direct access in Server 2012. I mean, it's so simple now that a small business can use direct access. I
Mm.
mean, it's amazing, like what they've done in terms of 2008, 2012, like the thing that they've done. For example, before then, you have to have, direct access with lots of public IP addresses and all that. Now you can basically have, your firewall here. You can have your direct access inside here, not with one nick, sorry, not with two nicks, with just one nick, you know?
Mm.
I mean, that's amazing. Like, that's amazing. You just have it with just one nick, sorry, and you can still use direct access just with one nick. I mean, that's like amazing. Small businesses can use it. You don't have to do something super elaborate.
Mm.
Yeah, but yeah, let's go through the process now. So the one that I'll be doing using is LonMem1 will be our direct access server. So first of all, let me just make sure that it's got two NICs configured. Yep, it's got two NICs configured. So we'll probably rename the NICs so that we can carry on configuring and using this. If we go, so if we're successful today, the thing that I mean, we've got little time left, but if we're successful, so this is the domain one. So this is
Mm-hmm.
192.168.140.3.
Ah, that's your domain network.
Yep.
Okay.
And then this is, so let me just rename them. So let me go
Yeah. Like
public
public or yeah. Mm.
and let's go rename corporate. So that's
Yeah.
the corporate, that's the
Okay.
public one.
And what IP did you get on the public
The
interface?
public one, I think we'll just give it let's give it, that's 192.168.1. Let's give it, is it dot one that I'm using here? Let me see. Dot 140. So I'll probably use dot 141 on this one.
Okay.
We'll need to do a lot of tweaking, but it will force us to think a lot
Okay.
because we'll need to do a lot of tweaking.
Can't we use something like a 10 or so? So
Okay,
we
yeah,
could
we can use
use
a 10
that.
also. That would be good.
Uh,
So if I go 10
10 0 0
dot, yeah, 0 dot
something.
0 dot 1,
Yeah.
and then, yeah, so this is the other one is that the one that's facing the internet, will it have a public, will it have a default gateway? What do you think?
Um,
What do you think?
The question is, your IP that has a NATed public IP, does it have a gateway?
Yeah, a default gateway.
I would think so. I mean, if you're gonna,
I
Because now in this situation, because we can't have two default gateways on this machine, we can only have one.
uh,
So
it
which
should
one of them do you think
it
will have the default gateway? The public or the private?
public.
Yeah, good one. So it actually will go on the public. So the private one, uh, we have to remove our default gateway on this guy.
hmm.
So the public has to have,
Because
Okay, but
You can just broadcast against your local subnet, but if you need to access anything outside of your internal network, you'd have to go to a default gateway.
what do you do when your corporate network has more than one subnet?
Good question. What do we do?
Uh.
There's something that we
I don't
can
know.
do. We can add a static route.
Yeah, route table.
Yeah, exactly. So if I go
Okay.
route print. So if you have multiple, you have to go and add static routes on your direct access server. So yeah, come on, respond. Have you ever had this one with direct access where it just takes a while to respond? Sorry, with PowerShell, not direct access. So yeah,
Hmm.
so what you can do is you can add the route and go route add um uh, route add
-p.
yeah dash p. Nice one, thanks. Route add dash p and then add, you know, you say if you're going to this network, maybe you're going to 172, maybe that's one of your network internally. And then the thing about this one, Sven, is that you have to do this for every single one of your internal network that you want direct access server to be able to reach. If you don't do this, if you miss one network, you won't be able to reach it on the direct access server. So you have to go and say maybe 192.172.20.0, whatever, then you go
Yeah, and then
yeah,
you send it actually to your internal gateway, but
exactly.
you don't mention your gateway into your
In
network
the
card
network card,
settings.
exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
And
okay.
then if you have 15 networks, you have to do this for all 15 networks. If you have 30
Yeah.
networks, you have to do this for all 30 networks on your direct access
Okay.
server. So
Okay.
that,
I mean, this is just some sort of lab configuration, and yeah,
yeah,
that's okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean, yeah,
okay.
even I mean like if in the real world, like that's what exactly that we have to do also. We'll have to remove the default gateway from my internal NIC. It has to be on the external NIC. And then we have to add static route on our direct access server if that's gonna work. Yeah. Okay. So then the other thing is let's go the public one. So we give this one 10.1 10.0.1.1. Is it? Let me just check it again. Oh, okay. No, I've not even configured it. So let's go back and let's configure this one for 10.1.1.1 2fi 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 0. Then let's say it's going to 10.1.1.254 and prefer DNS server. Yeah, let's leave it empty. We'll run into a lot of issues, I can tell already. Because we're not standard at all. We're going to be using PK highs and names and all that stuff. We'll have to be adding all sort of host entries and all kinds of stuff. Otherwise, we're going to have, yeah, can tell that issues are already lurking around the corner. Okay, so the first thing, what's the first thing that we do? Actually, let's write down the steps that we'll do. Uh, okay, baby.
The
So,
steps to implement isotop, or what are the steps that we're running up?
direct access. So, want to implement direct
Okay.
access in this mode where we have, in this mode, in the number one mode, where we have public IP address here on the direct access server, private IP connected internally, and yeah, so that's like the one that we want to do for the direct access server. So what are the steps that we do? So first of all, we have to install the remote access role, right?
Yes. Mhm.
So after that, what else do we need to do?
Run the wizard.
Nice one, nice one. No, that's very, very nice. Install the direct access role. So here's the other question that we'll start running into once we start the configuration. Run the wizard. Now, remember the mode that we're doing. There are two wizards that we can run.
Mm, there's
Yeah.
three modes, or Edge server, internal server with one nick, and internal server with one nick, with two nicks.
No. So when you're running direct access, there's actually two different wizards that we can run when we're doing that. So actually, let's go to do that now. So I think we already got remote access role installed on this server the last time we did VPN.
Yeah.
So we have remote access role. Yeah, but I don't think we let's see, enable direct access. Then it should have something coming up behind there somewhere. Is it? Mm-mm.
Is it a role service?
Yeah, I mean,
I
yeah,
think
okay, yeah, this one.
that's the right one.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we installed, because what happened, like, during the last Hangout, Eric, because we did VPN the last time we had an Hangout, so we already installed VPN on this server. So it's the
Okay.
same
Yeah.
role as so it's a role, it's a Windows server role. So it's the same role as the VPN role. So all we
Yeah.
need
Okay.
to
That's
do
a,
is, if we've installed the VPN role already, all we need to do is right click on this guy and go enable direct access.
yeah.
Then it comes up with this. Says this wizard enables you to do this, to enable direct access. So we go next. And actually, let's put this down also.
Yeah.
When we're installing direct access, we can install direct access in a simple mode, or we can install it in a complex mode.
Ah. Okay.
In a simple mode is where we can use, it can make life easy for us, but in a production environment, you really won't use that. It's something where you can use, you know, self-signed certificate from the direct access server. But in a complex mode, you have to have your PKI infrastructure running, where you install certificates on your direct access. So there are two certificates that you install. Number one certificate that you install is the certificate that will be used for IPsec tunnel. And that will be a certificate that is issued by your internal internal
Yeah.
CA. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the number two certificate that you have to install is a certificate that you use if you're using IP HTTPS, which you assume
Uh,
many of your clients will be using. Because even though you may enable port UDP 3544 on your own internal LAN, we used to say that their ISP won't be blocking UDP port 3544. Or maybe somebody has configured something on their local firewall in the bar that they are working, or in the third party company that they're, maybe in the client company that you're working. So you have to use IP HTTPS normally. And so you have to have a certificate that will be used for IP HTTPS. Remember, this certificate is not going to be used for encryption, it's going to be used mainly for authentication.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
And
that needs to be an external certificate, like a.
you can use an internal certificate because remember that the client also adjoined to your domain, but typically it's recommended by Microsoft that you use a third-party CA. So you're absolutely right. So that is recommended to be a third-party issued certificate.
hmm.
And but the good thing about this certificate, the good thing about it is that you can use a wildcard
Oh,
certificate.
that's nice.
Yeah. So basically, you can just go to GoDaddy and say, issue me a certificate for adatum.com, and just put, and so it's going to be for,
Wildcard
yeah,
star dot.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's going to work for IP HTTPS and it's going to do that job. And
So
sorry,
like your record,
yeah,
your record could possibly be your record could be or your certificate that you would might use for that is like DA server one
exactly, yeah.
dot.
It
Okay.
can be that, yeah. And then the thing is that this certificate has to be installed before you start the configuration. Because once you start the configuration, it will start asking you, select the certificate that I will use for IPsec. Select the certificate that I will use for IP HTTPS. So you must have this certificate installed in the um, in the computer certificate personal store. So it must be installed in your computer certificate. You know, when you go on the personal, it must be installed in that. Then you can select it. No, you can you can switch off the light. It's okay, guy. Yeah, yeah, okay. Very few more minutes. I'll be done. No, not 5 minutes. No, it's at least 30 minutes, at least. No, because it's 11 o'clock. I know, I know. No, sorry. Sorry. Got my wife. She's normally not here. She's in London usually, but
Okay.
okay, so let's go a bit further here. So let's cancel this and let's go back to direct access server. So okay, it says first thing it wants us to do is to select one or more security groups containing client computers that will be enabled for direct access. So what we want to do is add to this list and say install direct access role, but also put here and say um, let's say 1B, create a security group for DA clients and add your clients to this group. So that's one other thing that we have to do is we have to create a group in Active Directory, and that group will be the group that will contain, no problems, and that group will be the group that will contain the users. Let's go back to this one. So if we go to Active Directory server, so create all one, and then we have to create a group, new group, and let's call it DA client. And then we'll add.
This is part of the this is part of the wizard
No, so
or
this is Active Directory
prerequisite.
users and computers.
Okay.
Yeah. So what will happen is because the computers that will, because not all computers will be able to use direct access. All the computers that will be able to use direct access, no problems. You're in the same boat as Miss Van. All the computers that will be using direct access, all the computers that will be using direct access has to be in a security group because you have to specify the security group when you're setting up direct access. So that's why we create a group called DA client, and all the computers that will be using DA clients will add them into that group so that when we go back to our direct access server to specify, we'll specify the group that all our clients, all our DA clients will be in. So if the computer is not in this group, it cannot connect to the direct access server. Because it says select one or more security groups containing client computers that will be enabled for direct access. So first thing that we have to do, it says we can enable direct access for mobile computers only. So what that means is that we can say enable direct access only for laptop computers or for notebooks. And the way it's going to do that is going to create by itself, the wizard by itself will create WMI filtering in group policy. And the WMI filtering will look for laptop characteristics, which makes sense because there's no point enabling direct access for desktop computers that won't leave the office, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but the thing is that in because of the lab environment we're in, we're using a virtual machine. So if we select this option, our virtual machine won't be able to connect. So because we're in a lab environment, we have to disable that option first. Then the other thing it says use force tunneling. Does anyone want to explain force tunneling? It's really straightforward. What do you
What
think?
was the question?
Force tunneling, because one of the options we can see here, it says use force tunneling. So what does that mean?
I think normally the client will somehow split the traffic into internal traffic and external traffic, and when you say, okay, use force tunneling,
Yeah.
you force the client to tunnel all the traffic into the internal network, even
Yeah.
the the traffic to Google or Facebook or
Good
something
one.
like
Yeah,
that.
good one.
Yes.
So it's same thing as it's the same thing as forced tunneling in VPN world. So you have either split tunneling or you have forced tunneling. And what that means is that this client wants to go talk to Google. So when this client wants to go talk to Google, we can either say, hey, we want you to send all the traffic to the direct access server, then come out from the direct access server out to go and talk to Google. Or we can say, if you want to talk to anything on the corporate network, just go via direct access. If you want to talk to anything on the internet, there's no need contacting the corporate network. Just go directly to the internet. So that is split tunneling. Forced tunneling will force your client to use your corporate internet connectivity. And some people want, what's the reason why you want to do something like that? What's the reason why somebody want to use forced tunneling?
Mm.
Security, I assume.
Sorry, Eric.
I just said security. Sorry, we were.
Good one, security. Because some people will be like, yeah, we can use security because we have all the proxy and web filtering set up on our internal network. Why not let's just pass all the traffic there? But then the thing is, you really don't need that in modern networks because many antiviruses and many antivirus applications have a way to take your web filtering from your corporate network and apply it on the local client. I know the one we use in my office does. So anything that we set on web filtering on our corporate client, the antivirus that we use, we actually set it on the client itself. So when the user goes home, the web filtering that applies on the corporate network is still applying whether the user is connected or not. So in this case, many antivirus application has already taken away the requirement for forced tunneling in many situations. So except another case I can think of is if you want to pretend your IP address to be coming from somewhere else, from your internal network all the time. So you can use the force tunneling and all that stuff. Now maybe for some cloud applications that have whitelist, they've whitelisted your internal corporate IP, but they've not whitelisted, the whole internet IP. So if your user wants to use that cloud application, they have to be coming from an IP address that is internal. So that's why. So, but in this case, we'll just leave these two disabled, but at least we understand what they mean. Like enable direct access for mobile computers, we'll only enable it for laptops and notebooks and tablets. First tunneling will say send all traffic internally. So then we go next. So now it's asking us for the topology. So we can either set it as an edge. An edge means the one that we mentioned here. The direct access is connected directly to the internet. It's got two network adapters. One network adapter has a public IP address, one has a private IP address. Or we can use it in this scenario where it's sitting behind a firewall that is doing NAT for it. So those are the options that we have here.
Hey Sven, are you able to see David's cursor? I can't see his cursor when he's pointing to.
You can see. Can you see when I'm
No,
moving now? Can you see anything?
no, I just see when you click on the radio buttons and I see the cursor.
Yeah, same for me. I just see the radio buttons.
Ah, that's strange. I'm not sure why.
Now perhaps you can, when you move it into the gray area, just a second.
This one?
No,
Can't
Maybe
see it.
can you see? I just clicked on this one now.
I can
no,
see highlighted, but I don't see the cursor.
no.
Ah, I think it has to do with the maybe because I'm using how DP to connect to the server while you're using
Uh,
TeamViewer.
it's TeamViewer RDP, and
Yeah.
afterwards it's something else again.
But I mean, no big deal. I know what you're talking about. You were suggesting the first one is when it's the edge device, and
Yeah.
then the bottom part is when you're behind a firewall and
Yeah,
you're adding.
exactly. So direct access, like we said earlier, they've made it so that we can even, I mean, a small business can use it because you don't have to have two network adapters. You can even have one single network adapter behind, which is basically what is going on in most companies, most small businesses. You have your server with one network adapter and it's connecting to your internal firewall and so you can even use direct access in that scenario, which is awesome because small businesses now they can use direct access server. They don't have to be a big business with lots of public IPs and all that stuff. So now we have, okay, we will select the edge because that's what we want to play with today. So it says an external adapter with a public IP address and without a domain profile cannot be located. So that's like a good one
That's
for us.
that's
So
the same problem I ran into an hour ago.
so first thing I'll probably need to do is change this to a public IP address. So maybe change this to 11. So we just lie to the computer and say we're a public IP.
Okay, you hacked it.
So let's go, yeah, let's go next. So you say we want to use it as an edge device. And then next, you know the reason why it does that is because the direct access server will actually automatically select your public interface and your private interface based on the IP addresses that you've configured. So that's why. So because it's doing it very wizard, it's like, yeah, I will automatically select your public. I'm like, oh, I can't even find a public one. What are you using?
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you just go a step back, please?
Yeah, sure.
So
You can,
now we got two network adapters, right?
yes.
So and you just said that we got an edge device, but
Yeah.
what's then the difference between an edge device and behind an edge device with two network adapters? Is
Yeah.
it like, oh well, I got one NIC
Yep.
in my internal network, and the other NIC is my
DMZ.
the DMZ and
Exactly. So
behind the
that's
firewall stuff
so
like that.
behind
Okay.
yeah, behind an edge
So
device.
the edge device also got two NICs, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So behind
Just
an edge
one
device,
NIC
two NICs.
has a public IP. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. I
So
got it,
edge
I got
device
it.
is also
Okay.
two NICs, but one NIC has a public IP. Behind an edge device with two network adapters is when you're using it in a DMZ scenario, which truthfully, this is the scenario that most people will use it in the real world. You put your direct access server not with an external IP address, but you put it in your DMZ behind an edge device. So it will have a network interface connecting to your DMZ and an interface connecting to the local network. So I'm not sure, is that clear, Sven? You're muted, sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, that's clear, but the second point didn't work for me. So I also, so in my environment, I tried it the same way: two NICs, two private IP addresses,
Yeah.
and I selected behind the edge device with two network adapters, but it also gave me the strange error message.
And the error message, is it relating to public IP? Because behind an edge device is not looking for a public IP this time.
You should be looking for a private, right?
Yeah.
Because
So
it assumes that you're natted.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It assumes that you're NATing it behind that. So that one is a scenario for a DMZ scenario when you have your DMZ network in the middle, your internal network in the back, the public network in front. So your direct access server is sitting right in the middle, connecting to the DMZ and to your internal network. Whereas the edge is there's no DMZ. I'm connecting directly to the internal network and to the external network. Most companies will use behind an edge device with two network adapters. At least I know that's how we use it where I currently work. But just for practice sake, we can use edge and then go next. And then it says add additional suffixes to search for short unqualified names. So what this means is that we can add suffixes or DNS suffixes that DA client will search. So we can say, you can see it's already added our domain, which is adatum.com. Let's say we have another internal domain, maybe another internal domain called, maybe for the engineering department. We can add that domain here. We can say, okay, we want to add another domain suffix, maybe eng.adatum and go add. So this is basically like if you know under your internal your network adapter properties, you can add DNS suffixes. So this is like the same thing, but just for direct access.
Yeah. Isn't this stuff used for detection what an internal and external network is? Like when the client... No?
No, not
No?
yet. No. So this one is mainly for DNS resolution. So it's to say, the, so this to say, this my internal DNS. So for example, if your user types in
Like
ping
server one or so, it will
exactly,
add
so it
server
will be like, yeah,
datum.
exactly,
Okay.
good one, exactly.
Okay.
So it will just add
But
them in this list.
why do I have to configure it here? Normally, I would just configure it into the IP settings of the client.
Ah, not the IP, it's because your client is using direct access
Hmm.
for DNS, for internal DNS.
Okay. And then he
Yeah,
connects to the DirectAccess server, and
yeah,
the DirectAccess server will give him this information like a DHCP server would normally
exactly.
do.
But
Okay, okay.
if you've not had that domain here, and your server and your
Hmm.
user goes ping server one, direct access will just go ping server one.com. Oh, I can't find it. That's all. Bye bye. But
Hmm.
if you've added all your internal domains here, it will go ping, add that server one.com. No. Okay, let's ping server one.ng.adatum. No. Okay, let's ping server one.this1.adatum. No. Okay, yeah. Sorry, it doesn't exist.
Okay.
But otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
it's just gonna go for whichever one is there, and that's what this one is for. So this one is mainly just for DNS resolution. Then the next one, which is the GPO configuration. So it's not saying direct access client GPO. So the direct access settings, direct access will create some group policy objects.
A
And
lot.
yeah, actually, like it's mainly one, but there's some more that we can create, like the one that will allow ICMP. But it's actually going
Okay.
to be one. And the main thing, what do you think would be the main thing in that group policy object that is going to create? What do you think would be the main thing in it? Sven, what do you think would be the main thing? Remember that we said direct access uses Windows Advanced Firewall.
Mm.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So
So
the main
some
thing that will be there will be the
the
IPsec
IPsec,
connection settings.
IPsec. Hmm.
So this is like the settings that it will use to establish the tunnels. So it will create this and deploy it to all your computers. So all your computers know, hey, what? For example, let's go back actually because we forgot to talk about something. It said type the public name or IPv4 address used by clients to connect to the remote access server. So if you've got, you know, um, an IP, an internal, an IP address name that your client will be using to connect to it, you put it in here and it will create that inside the IPsec settings so that whenever the user opens the computer, there's already an IPsec tunnel waiting to be established.
Ah.
And that IPsec tunnel is trying to establish a tunnel with lonmem1.adatum.com. I'm not sure if
Hmm.
that's clear, Eric. Is that clear though?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's yeah. So if we go next. So actually, I like more Microsoft has done with this one. So there are two direct access configurations. There's one for the client. There's one for the server. And then let's go next. So we can edit it if you want, but let's just go finish. Then it's gonna create all these. And then after, so this one is just enabling direct access. This is not like configuring it like that. This is just enabling it. So this is just like the basics of enabling it. But on our client, in the meantime, because we're in a lab environment, on our client, we need to add a few more steps. Step number 3, create a host record that points long mem1.adatum.com to 11.1.1.1. So that's what we have to do on our client because our client will need, because we don't have a public DNS. So for our client to be able to connect to the direct access server, we have to have an host record that is pointing to this. So let's go back. So let's go back to our client 2. Oh, why can't you complete it when this? Did I do? I'm not sure if I did.
Hmm. Perhaps you can. I think you have to.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I probably ran sysprep or something.
Uh,
I'm not sure. because yeah,
I think you shut down the machine when Sysprep wasn't ready or so.
yeah, it could
This
be.
happened to me in the past too.
I think I could have done something. It sounds like something I would do.
This-
So let's go to, yeah. Oh, okay.
do you get a snapshot of the machine?
Do I do? Let me see. Actually, let me
Yeah.
see.
Perhaps you can just reverse it to another state.
Mm-mm. Let's go power of the machine. Let me see if I have the snapshot somewhere. Client 2. Actually, the
Hmm. Uh,
yeah,
or
you
you
are
can
using.
just clone a long client one or so.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can easily clone the other one. I'm trying to look for like snapshot. I'm not. Let me see, because I know I've got snapshot for this one. But I can't see. I'm trying to. Um, is it preferences? VirtualBox. You know what? Does anyone know where VirtualBox starts?
I normally work with Hyper-V.
VirtualBox.
Um,
Let me start this other one. If this one is running, I can just quickly join this one to the domain, and then we'll go from there. Come on, come on. It's funny. Mm, come on. Ah, um, Java. Let me just give you the ID and the password that we're connecting to. Sorry. Although we will be done in a few minutes time. Um, but let me just give this to you. That's the
Are we
password.
connecting to a new TeamSpeak? I mean, a
No,
TeamViewer?
no, just give that for Javier that just joined, because he won't have, he'll be thinking, what are we talking about?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a few more minutes. It's 11 o'clock. Let's support. Come on, go for learn client one. Okay. So this one is the. My guess is it will be that it's gonna fail or something, because I don't think it's joined to the domain. I go to. Actually, Sven, remember the last time we were talking about how to cut short the welcome screen in Windows 8?
yeah, did it
Yeah, so
work?
yeah, no, I actually found a group policy that I can that I can use to
Okay.
I can use to disable it.
Mhm.
Yeah, just disable this stuff, because otherwise, also, like, if once you move users, yeah. So I think I'll need to join this guy back to the domain. So let me just quickly join him back to the domain, and then we'll continue from there. Mm, just make sure he has the correct IP addresses. Even though it says this on, if I go, okay, hold on. If I go back to this one, because I can't find this guy. This guy is not on the domain. Find um, computers on client one. It thinks he's a member of the domain, but he's not a member of the domain. Because I think I rolled him back or something. So we can use this guy rather than the other one. Yeah, thank you. Okay, let's see. So configuration was applied successfully with warnings. Okay, let's go. Yeah, then we have this console, the remote access management console. So bless you. Sorry. I mean, if we can just get this one to work, at least just to see. Yeah, direct access. Let me join this one back to the domain quickly. Come on. Come on. Let's quickly join him back to the domain. Um, and then we'll need to add him to that group.
DNS service side?
Yeah, I think so. Probably messed something up somewhere. IP config 192.168.140.2, I think is the domain controller. 140.4. Let's just say 140.8. 192.168.140.2. Come on. Yep, we got through. So yeah, it will connect. Yeah, okay, why that's thinking about whatever it's doing. Back to this one. Okay, so this one will probably take a while. Client guy. I really don't like this one, but just for time's sake. So, I mean, yeah, it's disabled. Oh, okay. Let me just make sure. Yeah, I think I know what's going on. Sorry, my mistake. My mistake, sorry. I think I have it connected to the wrong adapter. So it's connected to 2. So that's the adapter that I should connect it to. This one is 2 and 3. So 3 is the public internet. So let's go back to connect this one to 2. Sorry. Just so we can quickly test, and then I'll just mention like the way the complex one works. Um, then we'll finish for today. Okay.
Uh, is there a session next week?
Yes, there is. There is.
Okay.
So next week is on the network policy server.
Hmm.
That one is like let's see, things like radius, wireless authentication.
Hmm.
I mean, this 7411 has like just a lot of topics, I tell you. I
Hmm.
tell you, just has like a lot of topics that they've come together into this stuff. It's just amazing. Just the
Is
network policy server. Carry on. Sorry.
how is the 411 compared to the other two required for
I mean,
MCSA, 410 and 412?
410. I mean, 410. We were able to finish when we were doing the hangout for 410. We finished the hangout for 410. I think it's 6 weeks or so, or maybe 7 weeks or so. And we were attempting to do the same thing with 411 before. So in the beginning, we were like, yeah, we'll do 411 hangouts, the same way we did 410 hangouts, where we just do one section a week. But man, for example, you remember when Sven was there when I was saying, oh, we're gonna do next week, we're gonna do VPN with DNS with direct access, and Shami was like, are you serious? I was like, yeah, we'll try. No, there's no way. It's just like it's a lot of stuff that I mean, it's a lot of material to cover for 11.
Well, David, I'm assuming you already have your MCSA or E, correct?
Yeah, I do. I do.
How's the 412? Like, what would you say is the most difficult or the most cumbersome to learn between the 410, 411, and 412?
412.
The 412 is the most difficult?
412, yeah. Because sometimes it has like many of the topics that we're doing in 411, many people like them. They are topics that you're really interested in for like real world stuff. Why many of the stuff in 412, you have to know them because Microsoft says you have to know them for to because if you're gonna call yourself an MCSE, you have to know this one. So that's why you have to know some of them because many of them go into like a lot of details that you're like, wow, am I really gonna be doing all this stuff? But then the more interesting one that I really, really enjoyed are 413 and 414 because that's purely design, just design, just design, designing DNS infrastructure, designing Active Directory infrastructure, designing all kinds of infrastructure. So I really love the classes for that one.
Okay, good to know. Those are the two that they're gonna offer at my work. So
Really
good to
good
know.
one. They're really good one in terms of like the design ones. Because those kind of one, when we're discussing them, we don't really discuss them in labs like this. It's more like thinking of different things. Okay, so now we've got this one. So the first thing we need to do is confirm that the group policy is deployed to it. So let's go CMD. How do I check group policy that's deployed to a client?
GP result
GP result,
slash R on a
slash out.
Windows
Yep.
7 or 8 machine.
So let's see the group policies that are deployed to this guy. Um, oh, okay. Actually, I need to add him to the group first.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's denied due to security
security.
reasons.
Yep. So
Yeah.
I need to add him to the direct access group. So he has to be a member of the direct access clients.
And then when you do that, you have to force GP policies, group policies,
Yes.
or
Yes. So
okay.
so if I go yeah, I have to force GP update. So then it gets the group policy that it needs to get. So if I go, yep. So that's looking good. Computer policy updated. Yeah, okay. So let's check our GP result again. Let's see. So not yet applied. So not yet applied at all.
Could it be that you added the computer into the wrong group?
Ah, no, it's, I mean the DA client group. So if I go, yeah, it's in the DA client
It's
group.
client one, and
Yeah,
then member of PA clients. Okay, yeah.
so actually let me just restart the computer if
Yeah,
that's okay.
perhaps you have to restart. Yeah.
Yeah, let me just restart it. Um, Restart. And then let's go back to our DA client. So here's the thing. If I go back to our DA server, oh, that's not looking good. Okay, HTTPS is gone. That's understandable. Because this one, the direct access, okay, because IP HTTPS is disabled. Does anyone know why IP HTTPS is showing us with an X there?
With a what?
With an X. Because IP HTTPS is showing with an X. My guess would be due to certificates. Because it doesn't have any certificates to use for IP
Hm.
HTTPS.
Ist es gut?
Hm.
Gut oder schlecht?
Gut.
Zu wie viel Prozent?
So yeah, so this is the one that I will talk we're talking about. So now we've set up yeah, that's all our configurations earlier. The clients that will be enabled for direct access. Yeah, again, we can use direct access for remote access or for just for remote management. See this option here, network
Hm.
connectivity assistant. So if we're going to be using direct access for just Windows 8, network connectivity assistance is inbuilt into Windows 8. It's an extra download in Windows 7 that we have to use. But what it uses this one to do is that after you're connected, it can use this to tell your users that you're connected to the network. So this is different from network location server. Network location server is used to determine whether you're on the internal network or whether you're on the external network. So network location server is a server that is internally accessible, but it's not externally accessible. So when your users are inside the network, it tries to access the network location server. It's like, I can access it, therefore I'm inside the network, therefore I won't create and I won't start IPsec connection. But then if it's outside the network, it tries to connect to the network location server. It's like, I can't connect to the network location server, therefore I must be outside the network. Therefore, I will automatically start direct access connections, the IPsec tunnels. Whereas the connectivity assistant, this resource here is after you've connected to the network, I use this result to verify that connection is working. Then after I verify that connection is working, so it's not used to determine am I inside or outside. I just use it to verify whether connection is working. So if I go cancel, okay. Yeah, so and then this one is where we use this a self-signed certificate for the network location server. Management servers. Um, Let's add some servers here actually. Let's add a domain controller. Yeah, we'll talk that one is for yeah. We'll talk about these ones when we're talking about um complex direct access deployment later or in some special hangouts. Yeah, no, so it's applied actually. So this is the server settings. So direct access client settings as applied. So you can see client settings. Can you see? So if I go,
But the following GPOs were not applied due to filtering out.
no, so if I go direct applied group policy objects, this one.
Ah, the client setting.
Yeah.
Ah,
So
yeah,
this
yeah.
is
Okay.
server settings.
Yeah,
So server
yeah,
settings.
yeah.
And one other way
Absolutely.
that we can confirm that it has applied. What other way can we confirm? Go under Windows firewalls. Sorry, go under Windows firewall. Go under advanced settings. And then go under connection security rules. And can you see?
Yeah,
Can you see?
yeah,
So remember
yeah.
the GPO that we're talking about, Eric, that's what the GPO does. So those are the IPsec tunnels that it uses. So just do a quick test and then we'll finish for today because I can see we've got our wives disturbing us.
Hmm.
Yeah, just two
Same for
minutes.
me.
Yeah, so let's go. Sorry.
You have to tell your wife you said thanks for allowing you to stay up a little later, David.
Thanks for allowing me to stay up late. So if I go to, let me just quickly, yeah, if I go settings and then go to network. So we want to connect to the public network now, which is adapter 3. So let's connect our client to it and go to um, settings adapter 3 on our client and then change this to adapter 3. Okay,
So now the client is on an external
external
network.
network, yeah. Then the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to give the client an IP address of 11.1.1.2 or something like that.
Okay, so that it is in the same
Yeah,
public
exactly,
subnet, so to say.
exactly.
Okay, okay.
So we can go 11.1.1.2 and then go 11.1.1.254 maybe.
This depends.
And let's remove all the DNS. Actually, let's remove all the DNS server settings and then add an host entry,
For
long mem.
the non-mem one.
Yeah. So if we go C Windows System 32 private etc and then let's just properties. Sorry, not properties. I need to open with Notepad. And then let's go. Oh, okay. So we still have one,
Oh,
but it's the wrong one.
you did it in the past.
Yeah, the last hangout we did. So 11.1.1.1, and then let's go 11.1.1.1, and then let's save this, and then let's try to ping long mem1 dot dot com 11.1.1.1 and that's the other one. So actually, this is the other reason why this may not work. Because, well, no, not that one.
Okay.
One other reason why it may not work is that, um,
Perhaps due to the firewall and the IPsec isn't working properly at the moment because you are not connected to the remote access network at the moment.
actually, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I
Uh,
configured network connectivity assistant for the server to use local name resolution. Yeah, I did. Okay. The thing with that is, actually, I think we need to create another group policy object to allow ICMP, to allow
uh,
ICMP version 4 and ICMP version 6.
mm,
Yeah. But here's the thing. So we'll stop here for today. I mean,
yeah,
it's a good
yeah.
thing. I mean, we've learned a lot and and done that. But then, one of the other things we always have special hangout once. I mean, every now and then where we discuss special things. So we'll do one special hangout where we'll do this much more properly. But at least for now, we end there. But it's a good challenge for us to go away, get this working in our labs, and see if we can get it to work. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, okay. But yeah, I remember we'll need a group policy that will allow ICMP 4 and ICMP 6 for both client and the server because they use that. Okay, so we'll see you next week, guys. We'll discuss
Okay.
network policy
See you
further.
next week.
Have a good evening.
Hey,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks
see
for
you guys.
nice
Thanks.
to meet you all.
Yeah, nice to meet you guys. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. See you. Cheers.
See you.
Bye bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.